Yeah, that's horseradish. This is a rosette. So a rosette is like basil leaves that grows in kind of this spiral shape. And the horseradish root is like a tap root. So it's like a dandelion root, like a carrot. So quite easy to remove from the ground. Medicinally speaking, like roots-wise, you want to gather them in the autumn or winter, never in spring or summer, because that's when they are all the energy that is concentrated there.
And has anyone had wasabi?
Yeah.
So you know that burn. So it's a Martian plant. It gives you a good kick when you take it. Yeah, that's classic Martian. So if there's any blockages, you know I was talking about stasis, this is a plant that moves things, a bit like chili. It's used a lot in, I use it where people are old and they're cold and they don't move a lot and it gets their blood going around. It's also, and it's used externally, something called a rubefacient. So if something's cold and the blood's not going there, you put horseradish on it. It's really good to put in oils for sort of when you want to get circulation to muscles. And it's really good for getting up horrible coughs, like phlegm in your throat. It's heating and warming. The cabbage family, which is like kale and broccoli and mustards, and help you detox the liver. So they're this whole family really good for all of us because we're all exposed to lots of environmental hormones and things. So they're a really nice thing to have regularly in our diet. Okay, so this one is called snowdrop, and it's in the Amaryllis family, and it's also a bit related, like a cousin to daffodils, and they're basically toxic. Yeah, you don't want to forage them or eat them, but they are used in folk medicine. So in Eastern Europe, they are used for migraines, and what they do is actually rub the leaves or cut the bulbs and they rub them on their foreheads. In the 50s, chemicals were extracted from plants from this family, and it's got a chemical called an alkaloid. Alkaloids are chemicals that have nitrogen in them, and they often affect our nervous system. So classic famous alkaloids are like caffeine, morphine. They often have ene at the end. So an alkaloid, let's decolonise a bit, comes from al-Khawali, and that means the ashes of plants. And the ashes are alkaline, and the name alkaline is from Arabic. So it's used for cognitive decline, vascular dementia, traumatic brain injury. At high doses it induces nausea and vomiting. So it's used in a slow release capsule. So when people take it, it's released very slowly. It opposes the effects of ketamine, diazepam and anaesthetic. Oh. So it's quite a strong thing, isn't it? And then the flower remedy is actually used as a medicine. So the flower is picked and then held in solar water, and it's used for people who are stuck and frozen, and it encourages childlike freeness. It's for people who have an inability to cry, who are stiff and stuck in the past.
Thank you.
And it's been critically endangered since the 80s. And in the 80s there was something called Snowdrop Watch, and it's a bio-indicator of climate change. So for every degree that gets warmer, snowdrop flowers 3 days earlier. And it has like a clock where, so if you're in tune with when snowdrops come, you'll notice if it's, There was a non-spoken written language called Ogham, and it's written with tree characters, and Bay is one of the letters. So the plant lives for about 30 to 50 years. So that kind of connects it to sort of human lifespans in a way, because some trees live for 250 years, and elder and birch live for about, human lifespans or a bit longer. And its botanical name is called Betula pendula, and Betula is the name for all the birches, and pendula is the shape of it, because look, it's like that, it hangs like that. And when I teach kids about trees, I get them to move like the trees. And look, see, it's pendulous. Yeah? And as the signatures, the doctrine of signatures go, it's actually used for people who are stiff, and it makes them move. You know, that pendulous is a way of thinking of how it works. It works for people that are very, very stiff. It's deciduous, which means it loses its leaves. It's monoecious, which means it's assigned gender, even though like gendering plants is a bit weird. So it's basically got catkins that are so-called male or so-called female on different branches. So it's not binary. And it's a herb of the moon because its signature is silver and it has affinities to water. The plant, it contains chemicals called betulin, and basically medicinally used under the bark. And a nice way of collecting a lot of these kind of trees is to wait for where it's been really windy and it donates its branches, so you don't actually have to cut it. So when the big branches fall after a big storm, that's when you go to get some of the tree medicines. So you don't actually, it's donated it to you. So you pull back the bark, and under the bark are chemicals that protect the tree from disease, and they do the same to us. There's quite a few of these trees that have chemicals called salicylates.
Salicylic acid.
Yeah, and so aspirin is acetyl salicylic acid. So in this plant is something called salicylic acid, and in the plant it's a hormone that's important in the role of seed germination, root initiation, closure of the stoma, which are like pores, and its response to stress. That's what it does in the plant. In our body, it's anti-inflammatory. It interacts with our immune system. It lowers fevers, and it helps with pain. All of the plants with salicylates have different affinities, and this particular plant has affinity to the kidneys and urinary tract. And that's something we're not really taught in herbal medicine enough. They're called tropisms. Plants enter different meridians of the body. So it's particularly good for pain for kidney infections, it's good for arthritis, it's good for kidney stones. The buds is where the essential oils are often extracted from. And then on this plant grows a mushroom called birch polypore. It's not here right now, but the birch polypore that grows on this tree takes the chemicals from the tree into the polypore and has its own chemicals as well. So it's pretty amazing. If you tap it like 3 times, the tree will die. So you've got to know what you're doing. And also in indigenous cultures where they do it, they seal the sap, they heal the medicine. Here when people do it, they just make a hole in it and then sort of bugger off and leave the tree. So it's like, I don't judge people that do it, but if you do it, you need to know what you're doing because it's more delicate than maple. Maple's got like stronger sap and it can take it. But it's a traditional remedy in this country, and the water of this is very purifying, and it was often given to babies as their first drink and used to wash babies. Water is the first medicine, and it is a really beautiful medicine. And before you take herbs or food, good water is our first medicine. Not tap water, but really, this would be a medicine. I take water like very seriously as a healing kind of, component, because the tree filters it and puts nice chemicals in it. Yeah. But I really like the fact that this tree, the Celtic people of this country worship trees, and this is one of the trees that they worshipped in the alphabets of 20 trees, and this is one of their letters, and I just think that's really beautiful, and I like calling it bay.
So things to look at when you're trying to identify chickweed is the leaves are opposite, so you can see how they grow here, opposite to each other. And it's also kind of glabrous, so there's not much hair in it, and the margins of the leaf is entire. There's no lobes or serrated or Also the flowers, the Latin name is called Stellaria media. So Stellaria comes from star. So if you look at the flower, the petals, white petals. They're deeply lobed, so it looks like two petals, but it's actually one petal lobed, and it looks like a star. And they will grow anywhere, like out of cracks in the walls, like just anywhere in London you'll find chickweed growing.
What's nice is when it grows out, it's going to change a lot over the season, so it will get darker. Lots of the stuff that's coming up now is very rich in minerals. Things that are rich in minerals get extracted really well from vinegars as well, so you can bung them in vinegars. Also, a lot of these herbs are really good for anemia and feeling washed out. All these springtime tonics, they're called tonics, they invigorate you. The one thing I will say, because it's a lunar herb, it's very wet, it goes off quickly. You don't want to leave it around in infusions. It's nice to have fresh, it's really nice juice. I really like springtime tonics with Bramley apples and lime. It's just like instead of having like wheatgrass or spinach or something. Another thing that's really nice with these kind of springtime greens like chickweed and another one cleavers is that they don't have oxalates in them, which can aggravate some people with inflammatory conditions. So they're rich in minerals. They're like blood builders, basically. Yeah, and I would call them nutritive tonics.
This is probably one of the most popular herb in herbal medicine for eczema.
Yeah.
Eczema, so like skin conditions in general, like psoriasis, eczema, any condition that is heating, really, isn't it? Because it's a cooling herb.
If you're prone to getting like tonsillitis or swollen glands, or also conditions that are cystic, these are quite good herbs for that. It's like for pushing the lymph. It reduces anxiety. It's called refrigerant. So that means if you have a hot area, it cools it down. It's also been used for poultices for hot conditions. But if you had a weeping eczema, you'd probably want to take it as a dried herb, not externally, because it is boggy and wet. Because it's quite cooling. It's a really nice springtime tonic. I really recommend everyone drinks it.
The classic preparation with chickweed as an external remedy is infusing it in oil, which you have to do when it's dried because it's really watery, as you're saying.
Yeah.
So if you infuse it fresh in oil, it will get mouldy. But if you dry it or do a warm oil infusion and then make it into a cream or an ointment, it's specific for very hot, itchy skin.
Yeah.
It's known as an antipruritic, which is itching, or an anti-itch remedy. It's cooling for heat.
And it can be used in juices, it can be put in omelettes, it can be just eaten, it can be made in teas. It's really good for people with anemia, people that need building up. It's like plants have many chemicals, but this is very donating of its zinc, its magnesium. It's very donating of its chlorophyll, and chlorophyll, I mean, it's in all green plants, but in this form it's really nice for blood building, freshening your breath.
And it's just tasty.
Yeah, it's tasty.